Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Bugay. Let's start with the latest developments. President Volodymyr Zelensky suggested to open an office of Facebook in Ukraine. He discussed this with Facebook Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg and Vice President Nick Clegg during a video conference. The head of state noted that digitalization is Ukraine's priority. Our IT industry is actively developing, and today it accounts for 4% of the country's GDP. Volodymyr Zelensky also emphasized that Ukraine became the first country in the world to equate digital passports with ordinary ones, and it is planned to expand the list of electronic services for Ukrainians.
This is our priority task, reforms that are going on well. We digitize absolutely everything, 100% of public services. There are several ambitious goals ahead. E-customs, elections, both parliamentary and presidential, a digital census of Ukrainian citizens, and today it is a priority. We really want an official Facebook office to appear in Ukraine, so that Ukrainian companies can fully develop their business thanks to Facebook advertising, and so that the Facebook office can develop in Ukraine. This is very important because we have all the key technology companies, except Facebook, today in our market.
Prospects of Ukraine's membership in the European Union will be discussed at the Ukraine-EU summit. It will take place in Kyiv on October 12th. Ukraine will present its assessment of the association agreement with the European Union. Amendments to the document involving customs tariffs and quotas are being currently prepared. This was stated by the deputy head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Igor Zhovkva. The issue of Ukraine's energy security is also on the agenda, a joint statement to be made at the end of this summit.
The political bloc of issues involving the EU support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and the call for the EU to contribute to the cessation of aggression will be very important. It will be clear who is a party to the conflict. There will be an appeal to Russia to stop the aggression. It will be clearly defined who is the party to the aggression.
43 cars with Ukrainian sawmills left Kyiv for the Chinese city of Xi'an. This is the first cargo train from independent Ukraine to the People's Republic of China. Since the beginning of this year, Ukraine has already received more than 50 Chinese trading trains. Cooperation between the countries is the part of the Belt and Road Initiative. The Ukrainian train will have to cover more than 10,000 kilometers across the territory of 4 countries. And this is only the beginning of the development of trade communication between states, emphasized the representatives of Ukraine and China.
China is our largest trade partner. In just 7 months of 2021, the trade turnover amounted to $10.5 billion, which is 30% more than in 2020. And I'm sure this trend will only increase thanks to the Ukraine-China railway connection. I remember how we met the first Chinese trade train here a year ago. And today I have more hope for this first freight train from Ukraine to China. I'm confident that it will bring success in trade relations between the countries. China-Ukrainian transport cooperation is very promising due to the geographical features of Ukraine.
It is important to hold the meeting of the leaders of the Normandy former countries before the end of the tenure of German Chancellor Angela Merkel. This was announced by head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak. Now, according to him, consultations are continuing between representatives of Ukraine, Germany, France and Russia.
Today, we are working to ensure that meeting of the leaders of the Normandy format take place even before the end of Merkel's tenure, because she did a lot for this format. And today we have only 2 witnesses who were present at the signing of the Minsk agreements. And it is important for us that such a meeting really takes place in the near future.
Holding of the next summit of the leaders of the Normandy Four with the participation of the new German Chancellor is also being discussed. The parties are now considering the agenda of the meeting. This was announced by Vice Prime Minister and Minister for Reintegration of the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, Alexei Reznikov. According to him, Russia no longer requires meetings of the Trilateral Contact Group on the peaceful settlement of the situation in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions in Minsk. He also mentioned that Alexander Lukashenko destroyed one of the Kremlin's plans. Moscow tried to accuse Ukraine of withdrawal from the Minsk agreements because of the refusal to resume holding face-to-face TCG meetings in the capital of Belarus.
Lukashenko destroyed his image of an independent mediator, and we certainly will not go to Minsk. The Russians understood this, and when asked if they are ready to meet offline, the Russians say, of course, but in a safe place. That is, the word Minsk sounds no more.
The Hungarian Ambassador is summoned to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. This is due to the contract for the supply of gas bypassing Ukraine, which the country signed the day before with the Russian Gazprom. This was announced by the press secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Oleg Nikolenko. In turn, Hungary also summoned the ambassador of our country. They have already stated that Ukraine's position on the contract violates the sovereignty and national security interests of the state.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine calls the ambassador of Hungary in Kyiv to convey our principled position. The transportation of gas bypassing Ukraine undermines the national security of our state and the energy security of Europe, and the new agreement between Hungary and Gazprom deals a serious hurt to Ukrainian-Hungarian relations. The Ukrainian side will take decisive measures to protect national interests.
Meanwhile, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dnipro, urged Hungarian colleagues not to be guided by emotions.
We do not deny the right of Hungary to conclude agreements with Gazprom, but we clearly see that economically, Hungary could conclude a no less economically advantageous contract, which would include transit through Ukraine. We understand that the issue of excluding Ukraine from transit was a condition of the Russian Federation. Hungary accepted this demand. This is not in our interests. We defend our interests, that's it.
Up next, more than 6,500 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded in Ukraine over the past day. Among them, 574 children and 165 health workers. Almost 1,300 people were hospitalized. The largest number of cases are confirmed in Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhia regions, as well as Kyiv city. The Minister of Health emphasized that the most effective protection against COVID-19 is vaccination. They also urged to wear masks and adhere to social distance. The search of seasonal diseases has begun in Ukraine. The National Public Health Center warns about a big amount of flu cases. Just in a few months, although there are not so many confirmed cases yet, the search is a matter of time. How to protect oneself from flu and other viral infections, my colleagues found out.
Arrowwood, lemon, ginger and honey. Ukrainian shopkeepers say clients are buying these products more in recent times.
I say he who wants to stay healthy must constantly consume honey. He who eats honey never goes to the pharmacy.
Truly, I drink tea with lemon all the time and give it to my children too. I always make tea this way with a slice of lemon. Sea berry is 100% better than lemon and any other medicine.
Although doctors do not doubt the health benefits of these products, they, however, warn one should take flu much more seriously. Similarly, as with the COVID-19 disease, the vaccination is said to be the most effective prevention against influenza. Yet, even if you caught the virus after the jab, it will most probably pass with mild symptoms. Vaccines also prevent severe flow of the disease.
Inoculation is recommended at the beginning of the epidemic season. Better get a jab as soon as possible, in September. However, it's fine in October, in November, or any time. The only thing is, the sooner the better. It doesn't mean that one cannot get a jab during the season. The only thing to keep in mind is that the vaccine makes the greatest effect in 2 weeks after its administration.
Specialists also note the coronavirus vaccine is not effective against influenza, including vice versa.
Якщо ви вакцинувалися від ковід,
If you have been inoculated against COVID-19, take a pause for at least 2 weeks and then be free to get a shot against influenza.
The first indications of influenza include sudden attack of illness, headache, body pains, sore throat, fever above 38 degrees, cough and nausea. One should seek medical guidance on the very first day noticing the symptoms. Doctors warn it is impossible to distinguish flu or COVID or the common cold on one's own.
Те, що люди не носять маски, не дотримують.
The fact that a person wears no mask, follows absolutely no rules, will backfire, unfortunately, because the wave has already begun and it will be quite significant. Over the past 7 days alone, more than 182,000 people have picked a common cold in Ukraine. We observe a significant growth in numbers compared to the previous week. The number of patients have increased by more than 50%.
Essential warning: one should avoid self-treatment. A timely examination and qualified medical assistance are saving lives. Reported by Nick Starkov and Yulia Bardish, UATV News.
Almost 67% of deaths in Ukraine are caused by heart disease. On the eve of the World Heart Day marked on September 29th, our correspondents visited 2 national health institutes, the Shalimov and Amosov centers, where the most complicated surgeries and transplantations take place.
Petro had a heart transplant a few months ago after a microstroke. A team of doctors from the Shalimov National Institute of Surgery and Transplantology came to Rivne city for an operation.
First, it was hard for me to breathe, and then I visited doctors.
A deceased 39-year-old man became the donor. His heart started its work without complications. Petro is already returning to his usual way of life.
I don't work yet, but I walk quite good. Every day I try to walk 8 or 10 kilometers in the park and at home in the fields.
The last heart transplant at the Shalimov Institute was carried out about a month ago, although there are more than 150 patients who wait for donors. And this is the Amosov National Institute of Cardiovascular Surgery.
Сумую.
I miss school, I have friends there, and my brother and father and grandmother will come to me.
Relatives of 80-year-old Evgenia did not suspect about the girl's illness until this summer. During the physical examination, the family doctor revealed noises in girl's heart. The family came to Kyiv from Transcarpathian region. The Amosov Institute diagnosed the all caps syndrome. This is an abnormal passage of coronary artery from a pulmonary artery. The diagnosis is quite rare, and without a surgery, the chances for normal life are small. A week ago, surgeons managed to save Evgenia's life during the 12-hours-long operation.
Всі мене питали, дзвонили там усі.
Everyone called me, everyone asked me. I told one of my friends that I still can't describe my condition now. It's all mixed up, anxiety, worries, hope.
Up to 40 operations are carried out at the Amosov Institute every day. Ukrainian cardiac surgeons are in no way worse than their foreign colleagues. The main thing is to obtain the permission of the relatives of the deceased for organ harvesting.
Делаем практически весь.
We do almost the whole set of operations performed all over the world. This is the replacement of heart valves, the pathology of the aorta, aortic aneurysm, especially those that stratify the aneurysm. They should be operated in the first 24 hours, because if you do not operate it in 2 days, within 48 hours, 90% of people with this diagnosis are likely to die.
The adoption of the law on transplantation unblocked the work of transplantologists. This year, the number of operations performed is much higher than in previous years.
За 2020 рік
In 2020, 9 heart transplantations were performed, and since the beginning of 2021, 18 heart transplants have been performed. It is good, although the need is much greater. From 200 to 440 heart transplantations should be performed in Ukraine annually.
Останній рік дуже.
Over the past year, there has been a progress in this direction. This is the legislative framework and the attitude of society towards the problem of transplantation, and people realize the importance of this issue.
The Health Ministry plans to double the number of such operations in following year, reported by Nick Starkov and Larisa Zubenko, UATV News.
The UNESCO Alley appeared in Kyiv on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of the organization. 12 trees were planted in the National Botanical Garden. The trees were not chosen by chance. They symbolize the connection with the occupied Crimea and remind the role of UNESCO in the process of the occupation of the peninsula. This ceremony was attended by representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well as the UN coordinator in Ukraine. From the very beginning, when the occupation took place, UNESCO took a proactive position. A number of our partner countries appeared. They are our friends and they raise the issue of Crimea everywhere. Separate formats, special informational meetings take place annually. The situation in Crimea and the consequences of the occupation are highlighted annually. The International Festival of Contemporary Art, GogolFest, is getting ready to take place in Dnipro city. It will take place in 3 locations: in the abandoned building of the river station, the center of modern culture, and on the territory of the former metallurgical plant. And the industrial zone, a stage will be set between the pipes for 1 day. It will show modern opera and the ballet troupe. All 500 seats for spectators have already been sold out. Those who did not manage to buy tickets will be able to see the play by director Vlad Troitsky on large screens at other locations of the festival.
Тут буде світлова проекція.
A stage will be set up here. There will be a light projection, especially for this event, and it will definitely be something incredible. In general, the meaning of this event is a certain ritual combination of the past and the future, because this location is about the past in a certain way, but at the same time, the light installation here is about the future. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages.